Hello, welcome to the news before it breaks. I would just like to thank you for coming and watching this episode. So, number one, before we start, I would like to ask you to please subscribe. I'm currently at 6 subscribers. I'm trying to grow my channel organically. This channel is basically faceted around Christian persecution and politics and things along those lines. Sports, just, things that I find interesting, things that I find important that are going on in the world today. So explosive news came out of the White House garden today. Trump signs bill imposing sanctions on China over Hong Kong. All right, so let's read this together, and then I'll give my opinion on what I think of it. But I just want to say before we start, the Hong Kong people are a great people. They during their protests, they were waving American flags, singing our national anthem. All they really wanted was freedom from the oppressive CCP, the Chinese Communist government or Chinese Communist Party. So let's read this and get on with it. President Trump said Tuesday that he has signed legislation that would impose mandatory sanctions on individuals and businesses that assist China in restricting Hong Kong's autonomy. Trump also announced in a press conference in the White House Rose Garden that he signed an executive order declaring the United States would treat Hong Kong the same as mainland China. In other words, he's going to be by doing this, he is decentralizing China from treating Hong Kong so terribly. And they're basically breaking a treaty that they have with Britain when Hong Kong was under British control up until 1984. But let's continue with this. This is my first time reading this story, so I thought I would read it with you guys. The president said he took actions to hold China accountable for the oppressive actions against the Hong Kong people, which I completely agree with. I think it's a smart thing to do. All right. The effort to punish China over its treatment of Hong Kong was triggered by its passage of a controversial national security law that offers Beijing a high degree of power over the semi-autonomous territory. The legislation signed by Trump, formerly known as the Hong Kong Autonomy Act, was sponsored by Senators Chris Van Hollen, a Democrat of Maryland, and Pat Toomey, a Republican of Pennsylvania, and was approved by the House and Senate earlier this month. It mandates sanctions on entities that violate China's obligations to Hong Kong under the Sino-British Joint Declaration, and Hong Kong's basic law and sanctions banks doing business with those entities. The Joint Declaration, signed between Britain and China in 1984, was meant to guarantee Hong Kong's autonomy until 2047. So it was supposed to guarantee that, they would be separate from China, but China would still help them out. But China went back on their word. Not a big surprise from a communist country. That's why it's very hard for politicians to make these types of deals. They stayed good on it for a while, but once people started complaining, they went back on their words. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo in May said the U.S. could no longer certify that China was autonomous, that Hong Kong was autonomous from China. And I agree with him because China is suppressing their speech. They're sending their National Guard into Hong Kong. They're shooting people with rubber bullets. They're doing everything they can in order to stop these protests from happening. And all the Hong Kong people want is freedom from a crazy, oppressive government who spies on people, who throws doctors in jail, who knew about the coronavirus by some accounts, if they're reliable, as early as November of 2018. Um, and there's a lot of suspicion and things along those lines because they also made a deal with the United States a month later or right around that same time that if there was some type of pandemic, like pandemic of God, that they would no longer have to fulfill their part of the big deal that Trump put on them. And just so coincidentally, we had a pandemic that China failed to report, and the rest is history. Most people don't have a job right now. The country's locked down, and yeah, we'll see what happens with going forward. Okay. This law gives this is Donald Trump speaking now. This law gives my administration powerful new tools to hold responsible the individuals and the entities involved in extinguishing Hong Kong's freedom, Trump said during the beginning of his remarks on Tuesday. We've all watched what happened. Not a good situation. Their freedom has been taken away. Their rights have been taken away, and with it goes Hong Kong, in my opinion, because it will no longer be able to compete with free markets, he added. And he's dead on with this. All of their freedoms have been taken away. Hong Kong used to be a great tourist destination. Great. You go there, you'd have a fantastic time. They were great at exporting electrical goods. They made really good products, just everything. But China decided to break the separation of Hong Kong and China's CCP government, and is basically trying to control Hong Kong, which is very sad, but not surprising, considering that they let and by they I mean the government of China, the communists who really don't care about how many people die, as long as they're making money, or as long as they don't die, they don't care. All right, so the executive order was okay. The text of the executive order described by Trump was released by the White House later Tuesday evening. The order declares it the policy of the United States to suspend or eliminate different and preferential treatment for Hong Kong to the extent permitted by law and in the national security, foreign policy, and economic interests of the United States. America first. It directs the heads of executive agencies and departments to take all appropriate actions to execute that policy within 15 days of the executive order. So they have 15 days from today to dot their I's, cross their T's, and make sure that everything is in compliance with the United States when it comes to the importing and especially the exporting of, my understanding is, technical, like tech stuff and just a bunch of stuff. Trump said in May that he had directed his administration to begin rolling back policy exemptions, offering Hong Kong a special status. On Tuesday, Trump said that Hong Kong would no longer be granted special privileges or special economic treatment, and that the U.S. would restrict its access to exports of sensitive technologies. Yes, so basically what I was saying. And this is basically to show the world what is going on in Hong Kong. And some people may look at it like, oh, why is he punishing Hong Kong? But what he is really doing is he's exposing China and trying to get China to back down. So China can still make their money off of taxes and whatever else, but letting Hong Kong be a free, prosperous, and prosperous nation. Well, not nation, but yeah, basically its own country that is under the top level of the Chinese government, but still paying taxes, still doing those things, and making China more money. As we all know, or as you might not know, the Chinese government's currency, the yen, the price in value has decreased tremendously against the dollar. So they're in financial troubles, and this is a way for Donald Trump, the United States, and the rest of the world to put more of a magnifying glass on what's going on in China and what's going on in Hong Kong, which is part of China, and now the United States considers basically mainland. This is all about the freedom of Hong Kong, the freedom of the people to do what they want, to have the same God given rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness that we all have here in the United States. And I pray for Hong Kong. I really hope that everything works out for them, and that this is a wake up call to China. All right, so the president used his remarks to sharply criticize China over its handling of the coronavirus, which has sickened more than 3.4 million people in the U.S. and has killed more than 130,000 United States citizens, or well, just people in the United States. Just think of that number. It's so unfathomable that they would cover up something so big over, because they didn't really care about. They signed the deal with Trump to pay the farmers. They signed the sanctions, all that stuff, but they put that stipulation in where if there's any type of pandemic, that they would not have to follow through on the actual deal that China and the United States made. Now, China has definitely known about this since early December. Some people go back as far as, I think I said November, but actually it was October, when doctors were first coming out about the coronavirus. They were being suppressed by the Chinese Communist government, and they were basically lost and never found again. In other words, they went in for some type of interrogation. They were told that they were causing mass fear, things along those lines. So we have known about this since October or November of 2018. Think how different the country would look today and the whole entire world. That's 130 people just in the United States. And it could have been a lot more. 3.4 million people were diagnosed as positive. 140 million of them died. Donald Trump didn't find out. China did not release that there was the COVID-19 thing, like that it was actually there, and that the epicenter was in Wuhan, China, which has a density population the same as New York City. So, in other words, by like square mileage, you'll have the same amount of people. They were rapidly underreporting the amount of deaths, and he didn't find out about this until I believe it was January 5th, 6th, or 7th, early January, the day after China announced its first case. This is after China was already having, or at least Wuhan, China, was already having people die from the virus. Doctors who spoke out, lawyers who spoke out, went to jail, died in jail, coincidentally. Um, it's like they just wanted to make sure that they dotted all their T's, or sorry, I keep saying that, dotted all their I's and crossed all their T's, and basically murdered anyone who came out and tried to talk about this, virus that could become a global major virus. And unfortunately, the World Health Organization thought they did just fine, but my main point was that whenever China first announced it, which was a minimum of 2 months too late, they knew about it for 2 months. Donald Trump shut the country down because one day late shut the country down to China because one day later America had its first case. And I don't know how people can blame Donald Trump for this virus, how they can even put his name next to the virus, except for, trying to do the best for the United States people, knowing that we all have opportunities in our lives to make money, but we don't all have opportunities to live. So he was getting estimates of 200 or 2 million deaths. That has been reduced by tenfold on part of the American people, half on part of the American people, and then half on part of President Trump's actions. All right. So, let me read that to you. Trump said China would have stopped the disease from spreading to the United States and took credit for his decision to restrict air travel from China in mid-February. Okay, so he did it in mid-February. Nancy Pelosi was dancing on the streets a week or two later, telling you to come down to Chinatown, nothing's wrong. Claiming it saved millions of lives. So, put yourself in his situation. You are the president of the United States. You have the best economy, lowest unemployment. You're giving grants to you're helping all the minority groups. Even though they have become the majority in this country, I'm just saying, that's just the way people say it. Letting people choose the schools their children go to, bringing back over, I don't know, countless of millions of jobs to the United States, bringing back car manufacturers, coal manufacturers, oil plants, natural gas. I made a video on this yesterday. Joe Biden came out with his Green New Deal, and he basically explained that by 2025, so he wants to borrow $2 trillion right off the bat. He wants to use only clean energy, and by clean energy, he means no natural gas, no fracking, no fossil fuels, no, and oil is a fossil fuel. Um, just it would destroy this country's economy, and it would make people lose, I don't know, a lot of jobs. I know in Pennsylvania alone, if you take the coal and industry and other industries that are in the energy sector, you're talking about 7 million jobs in just this state. So he can cause up to 100 million jobs lost if Joe Biden did become president. And he does not care. He put Alexandria Ocasio Cortez in as his basically environmentalist. So her radical, far left ideas are what is in his Green New Deal plan. You can't just promise everyone who you were running against a spot here, a spot there, because that's what he did. When he beat Beto O'Rourke, he said Beto O'Rourke was really big on guns, on gun control. He said, I'm going to put you in charge of gun control. AOC backed them. I'm going to put you in charge of the Green New Deal, or, the air pollution and things along those lines. They want 0% carbon emission by 2035, I believe. And that means no airplanes, no cars, no factories, massive job cuts, massive tanking of our economy, and possibly the worst recession we might ever see. But, we'll have to see what happens with that. And let's just read this last paragraph. No administration has been tougher on China than this administration, Trump said, seeking to contrast his record on China with that of President Democrat nominee Joe Biden. So that's another thing. I do agree that Trump, he put a lot of sanctions on China. He tried to get them to pay their fair share. So everyone in America, because I don't think you know this, but there's people in Maine who we go lobster, owned a lobster business, let's say, and they would have to pay extremely high tariffs just to export the fish that they caught. And other countries charge us extremely high tariffs for the core of our country. Our farmers, our fishermen, our truck drivers, our entire energy sector. It's something that is very important. I would just like to thank you for watching. Again, I have 6 subscribers, but I'm trying to grow this channel organically. If you like the content, please click like, subscribe, and share. Again, thank you. God bless you and all your families.